Hello, welcome back to Trail Buddy. I'm Mark, and today we're going to continue on with our Ice Bear clone build. Again, we're trying to make this look like a 1978 just because we bought a black one, and ta-da, that's where we're going after, a 78. So right today, we're going to figure out how to get this stock Trail 70 chain guard and mount it onto the Ice Bear chassis. So I've done this before with aftermarket motors with a stock frame. And what I end up having to do is you got to trim this guard here quite a bit to get this to fit. But with the Ice Bear, we don't have the luxury of having tapped holes here already. So I've got a kit called like a riv nut. I've used it at the machine shop before. It's been a long time, but we'll get that out and we'll see if we can't get, because to try to put clearance holes in here and then to get a nut on the back side of that, that would just not be feasible. I mean, you could do it, but you'd have to take the gas tank out every time you want to take the chain guard off. So in the end, I don't think it's very feasible. But what we're going to end up doing is I've kind of looked it over already. So we've got our hole down here, which is going to correspond with a hole on this aftermarket motor. And it'll be behind this guard yet, so we're going to have to trim that out. But once we get that in location, we'll be able to figure out where it sits here, and then we'll trim this. After this is trimmed, then we'll transfer our holes up top. So we'll end up doing 2 clearance holes, and we've got a riv nut tool that we're going to try. So hopefully behind this steel, we've got enough room for our drill bit to go through and not make a mess. So hopefully we won't hit any fuel lines or electrical components. But what we'll do is we'll take off this air cleaner. I'll get a flashlight. We'll look down in there. We'll make sure we're clear. And then I'll let you guys know if there's anything to look out for if you try to attempt this yourself. So first step for what we're going to do right now is we're going to take all this parts off that we're not going to use. We're going to take this rear existing chain guard off because we're not going to use that anymore. We're going to end up having to take this shock off, swing it out, get this off, and we'll dig in. Got everything loose. I took this off. I got a rear chain guard off. So now what I need to do is I gotta start cutting. So with the stock setup here, they've got this covering and the back guard kind of so they overlap, so it keeps your bootlaces safe. But for what we want to do, we've got to get rid of this. And then down here in the bottom, the hole that we want to reuse. Or I don't say reuse, but we want to get access to because the clone setup here doesn't use it. I'll take this off a sec so we can see it. But down right here, and it's tapped and ready to go, is the one that we need to line up with our chain guard here. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be that tight, but that's going to set the location for the bottom. And we're going to end up, towards the end, we'll cut a standoff or a spacer that'll go between the engine and the chain guard. But for now, step one is we've got to trim this guard here. So one, we can get access to that bolt down there. And two, we can start fitting our chain. So this is, I'm just putting it in there temporarily just to kind of as a placeholder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this roughly where I think it goes. And I'm going to get a good idea of what I need to trim. So I'm going to say I need to trim probably right up to this guy, because then I'll overlap it and cover it. I may have to cut this off more just to get this down. But we'll start here. And then now all this in the back is just unnecessary. Plus I got to get rid of this here. So what I'll do, I'm going to make a line where the hole is, and that's where these 2 points will touch. So I'll end up trimming all this off with a cutoff wheel. And the goal here, if you're doing this yourself, is I want to try to take off a little So that way I've got material left, and I'm just going to slowly sneak up to it, because once you take it off, it's gone. You can't obviously put it back. But so I'm going to make a line here. I'm going to come down. And from experience in the past, I know I got to follow this radius all the way down. And I'll go right here, and I'll probably try to go straight so I can make this look nice. Just where that radius ends. Now, let's see what we got. So, trimming on the top, there's a lot of stuff we're going to have to get rid of, but I'm going to make myself a cutting line, and I'm probably maybe just leave the line or just take the line. So I'm following this large radius here. I may have to take more off this way, but I don't quite know yet, so I'm going to leave it there. And again, I'm going to take off the bare minimum, put it back on, dry fit it again, try to get this bolt started, and then mark it again. And then, so it's just a series of fittings. So we're going to fit it, take it off, trim some more, put it back on, see where we're at. And if we got to trim more, we're going to trim more. If we don't, then we got it. Then we can move on to the holes up here. So for now, we're going to get ready. We're going to cut this guy. I'm going to make this look a little better, just to give myself a good guide. So all of this will be no more. And we get rid of that warning sticker. Just have to remember to add gear oil. So what I got in front of me here, if I've got the tools I'm going to need, the hardest part of this job is going to be holding on to this bad boy. Now, I'm going to get, you're going to get covered in aluminum. So I've got my safety glasses, some earplugs. This is loud. And I'm just going to slowly work my way around. Hold it like this. And I may have to trim more just to get at where I want to go. But what I also have, other than my regular cutoff wheel onto my die grinder, I also have my little flap wheel here, and then we'll use this to kind of clean up, get the edges from not being so sharp. And then the ones I've done with this in the past, we've just touched it up with I think it was a Duplicolor Cloud Silver, and that's a pretty decent match to that silver that's already on here. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna take our bottom fastener here. We're gonna put it into that extra tapped hole just above the chain, and we're gonna see how we fit. So what I can see is kind of happening already is I don't think I can get this far enough this way or shallow enough, because as I rotate this guard up, like right now I'm right against the frame. As I rotate the guard up, it wants to pull it away, which isn't the end of the world. Now, this is the first time I've ever monkeyed with the Ice Bear trying to do this, so you are very much learning along with me. So what we can do is, I know we got to make a spacer in the bottom, because the original Trail 70 has that case or part of the engine casing there, or cover, right? So that holds it away on the bottom, but we're gonna have to cut a little tube or spacer to hold that away from the chain here, so we don't bounce into that. So I know we've got this in the right location. Coming around, I'm actually on top of where this mounts here on the little cover. There's like a little shelf right there. That's about right where I want to be because I don't want to go any closer this way because I'm going to hit that chain. So what I'm seeing up here in the top is if I get this to where, you know, we're maybe going down just a little bit towards the front, I think it's going to look better because as you get the wheel travel here, we want to probably give as much room as we can. But what this means is I got to put some spacers behind the guard here. I mean, you could muscle it in. We could put our rib nuts in there where they line up, and we could just bolt it on, and that metal will bend over. But we're also trying to make this to where if I can figure this out and I can pre-alter these guys for everybody, hopefully we can sell this as a kit because this really, really changes the look of the Ice Bear here into something a lot more Trail 70 like. So I think I'm going to make the call on this one. I think we're going to try to find if we have any spacers around the shop to space this chain guard out just maybe 3/16 of an inch, not quite a quarter. So we're not too far away, but I don't think we just want to bend that over. So I'm going to try to see what we got for spacers. And then the next step here is I need to transfer these holes. So I'm going to take this off just so I can get in here and look to make sure I'm not going to hit anything. And we'll start drilling our holes into our frame here to accept our rib nuts. And I'll open up that box. I'll show you the kit that I got. This is just a Harbor Freight kit. So we'll go through that and we'll see what we're going to do. So a lot of the fabricating I do elsewhere is I think what we're going to do is we'll probably drill and transfer one. We'll get our bolt through there started. And then what we'll do is we'll drill and transfer the second one while the fastener is in here. Because what we don't want to do is this is going to be tough to hold, and we just don't want this to walk. And I don't think I have any transfer punches here to be able to spot that. And but anyways, the first one we do, it doesn't need to be as critical because we're going to just, wherever that lands is where the first one's going to start. And the second one will be the one that's critical from hole to hole. So we want to lighten it up because I've done it in the past when I was younger to where I just did them both and maybe this one walked this way a little bit and this one went this way a little bit and you go to put it and then nothing lines up. So we will tackle that now. So I got my flashlight out, took my air box off here so that way I could see inside here where we've got our fuel lines and our got our like vent lines. There's a bunch of lines in there. So there was 2 wires that were really close to this area. So what I did is I got a screwdriver, like a real long one in there, and I got in there. I grabbed the wires and I kind of picked it up, and the screwdriver is still in there holding the wires above here. That way I got nothing riding along that engine there that I could accidentally hit while I'm transferring and doing these holes. So pretty happy with where we're at. So what I'll do is, and I found, I got some spacers here that were lying around. So I found those, and those will space it out just perfect to be in line with this. So now it's time to transfer our first hole so we can put our rib nut tool in. So I'm gonna get this guy where I want it. Try to make sure I'm kind of in the middle of everything, and then I am going to make a mark right where I want to drill my first hole. I got that. I'll make a little X. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a smaller drill bit, and I'm going to be very careful to hold myself back so that way when I break through it's very easy to blast through. And I'll work my way up to what we have for the rib nut. So we've got 1/4 20, M8, There we go, M6, that's what we'll use. So I've got to measure these guys because I got to figure out what I need to drill. So we've got 1 rib nut and 2. So it looks like from behind here I'll have enough room for this to go in and not hit that back of that engine casing. So it's going to be pretty close, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to measure this outside diameter, and I'll get the right drill bit size for this, and then I'll set up my tool here to work with the, maybe it's already set up for M6. Nope, not that lucky. I'll get that set up, and hopefully it'll make a mess. So I've got my little mark that I did with my permanent marker. I don't have a good transfer punch set here, so what I'm going to do is I do have a tap, but the only reason I'm using this tap is it's got a nice fine point, and I can lightly tap on it without screwing up my tap. So this will be my spot punch. I'm going to get that right where I want it. Okay. I got a nice spot there for my drill point. Line up with. All right, so we're going to do our first hole and work our way up. Not exactly sure what I'm doing here. I got my first rib nut in, and I've got my bolt started. So I'm going to try to get that kind of in the middle of its adjustment, and now I'm ready to transfer my next hole. So again, I've got my bolt on the bottom, where I'm trying to be the best I can in the middle of my adjustment. And I got my rib nut started here. I got my bolt in there tight, and now I'm ready to work over to my next. Oh, and my holes line up. Of course they do. Okay, so now I think we're ready for one more dry fit. Now, these rib nuts are really pretty clean looking after the fact. I probably could have got some paint and maybe tried to touch up some of that bare metal. But these are zinc coated, so they should help protect that a little bit. But all right, I just got to get all my hardware together and test it. Here we go. Here's a original Trail 70 chain guard on an ice bear. So we got it mounted up. I think it looks pretty good. You know, I mean, didn't know if I was gonna be crazy about these independent spacers, but they don't too bad. I think if I do the kit, I think we'll do like a solid one. But what really made this work is it's a rivet nut tool. So what it does is you take this little rivet piece, which is the nut, got like a knurled outside, and what I did is I pre-drilled the right diameter hole to fit this, mounted it on the end of my tool here, and well, you open it up, then screw it down, and then rivet it. So what it does is it pulls those thread in towards you and against this flange and just crimps it or rivets it right onto that sheet metal. So this is probably a little more depth, or it's a little thick. So it's like right on the edge, I think, of what these can do. But it really worked great. So now you don't have to try to get in there, put a nut behind it. And the only thing I had to be careful of is I looked down in here. I figured out where there's any electrical wires there, and I put a screwdriver there and just kind of held it out of the way. And as I was drilling, I started with let's call it an 1/8 inch drill bit, and then worked my way up to what this one needed, which was 23/64 drill bit. So this guy here, once you prick punch where you want to go, as long as you're not going crazy on an angle, this drill bit will usually follow your pilot hole. So I think it turned out really pretty cool. So those are the tools I use to get this done. And I think it really sets something about this chain guard on a bike with this aesthetic that really sets it apart from a clone, I think, versus you got that Chinese style sprocket guard here, and then you got that one on the top, which is, I think it works really well, but I don't think it looks as cool as this. And I think the only thing you'd really have to maybe worry about is if you had a passenger on here and they started getting their heels into that chain, or they had loose shoestrings or something. That would be the only thing I would look out for. But other than that, what I do need to do yet is I got to make a standoff spacer here for the backside of this bolt that bolts down on the bottom of the motor, because it's tucking in just a little too far, and I don't want it to hit the chain. But it's on here pretty solid, and I think it looks really good. So I hope you like the series. If you like what you see here, you can check out our website at mytrailbuddy.com.